Today we hear the gospel of the raising of the young man, the son of the widow of Nain. And how the Lord was passing through that city, and there was a funeral procession of this young man who was the only son of his mother, who was a widow, which meant for her, to lose him would be total desolation. And so he had compassion on her. And he went up to the bier and said, "Young man, arise." And he did. One of the greatest miracles of our Lord, raising the dead. And what this shows is that our Lord Jesus Christ has the authority over death itself. He's the Lord, he's dominion over death. And how often do we get caught up in the fear of death? How often do we let it manipulate us? How often do we, on one hand, or on the other, how often do we refuse to think about death? And yet, as Orthodox Christians, it's the core of our faith is that the Lord has dominion over death. He has dominion over life. He has dominion over death. He's transformed death into a passage into immortal life, a passage to himself. St. Paul is very specific. He says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is Christ." So whether he lives or he dies. And so this is the attitude that we all need to take. And how easy it is, for us to be manipulated by fear, especially in the world of politics, and especially when there's unrest and disturbance, and wars and rumors of wars that are happening that involve our country. Today we celebrate Saint Jonah of Hankou. He is a recent saint. He died in 1926. He was born in Kaluga, which is near Optina, went to seminary, did very well, became an instructor, and he also became a brother of Optina Monastery. When the Russian Civil War happened, he was seized, and he became a hieromonk. He was seized, he was half beaten to death by the communists, so he suffered for Christ, and ended up going with the White Army into Siberia, and where they crossed the Pamir Mountains. Now the Pamirs are not quite as big as the Himalayas. They're only about 20,000 feet. The tallest mountain in North America is 20,000 feet, but this is a whole range of 20,000 foot mountains. They crossed on foot into the freedom of China at the time, because this is 20 years before Mao would show up, 25 years. And so he found himself assigned to the city of Hankou, but lived in a town called Manchuria. There's a difference between Manchuria, which is the town, and Manchuria, which is the region, which would then later be taken over by the Japanese, and it was a brutal time under Japanese occupation. But Saint Jonah would not see that time. He was there with thousands of refugees from Russia who had fled the communists, from the White Army, and the merchant class and the aristocracy but also a whole lot of simple people who would rather leave their land than have it taken from them, and then being assigned to an unknown fate in the gulags. So St. Jonah ministered to the people. When St. Jonah had been a little boy at 8 years old, he had been orphaned. And he was taken in by a deacon who provided for him and for his education. And so he was able to ascend in the life of the church and eventually became a bishop. Being assigned to this town in Manchuria, where he had great care for the orphans in particular, because there were hundreds of orphans. And so he built an orphanage. It had space for 30, but that was a pretty big institution in that time among the refugees. He built a school for 500 children. He built a I don't know what you call it, a feeding center that would serve 200 people a day. He was one who was not in any way afraid to be socially active. It even says in his life that he would call up the Soviet Council and say, I need this, and this for these children. Please have it here by 8 o'clock in the morning. And he hung up. And there it was at 8 o'clock in the morning. He was very bold in his preaching. He was very bold in his teaching. He had taught at the Theological Academy, and he taught in the school there that he had founded. But most of all, he was a beloved pastor, and evidently a great preacher. He died in the midst of his works of charity. He was caring for a priest who had typhus, which is a horrifically contagious disease. What he got started out with tonsillitis, but it turned into blood poisoning. And so he was 38, I think, when he died, very young, and having been a bishop for only 3 years. So as we celebrate his feast day today, we read the gospel of the Beatitudes from Luke. Blessed are you poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh, and so forth. And truly he was blessed. He was blessed by God, his ministry, his service, and especially his pastoral love was blessed by God. And so he became one of the most beloved saints of the Russian Orthodox Church in exile. He's also been canonized by the Moscow Patriarchate, but I think it's important for us to look at him as this ultimate example of being tireless in good works, not only as a hierarch, but as a Christian. Putting himself out, doing everything that he could to serve his people. So through his holy prayers, may Christ our God have mercy on us.